Hi, this is Corey Franklin with Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently, who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. Tonight we're going to start out with Bert Trautman, who died recently at the age of 89, and it's a fascinating story. Bert Trautman was one of the great goalies in English football history, but his story extends far beyond that. Besides his prowess in goal for Man City, he's famous for two other things. Bert Trautman was originally a Hitler Youth who fought for the Germans as part of the Luftwaffe in World War II. The Nazi Trautman became a British prisoner of war, but after the war was over, he was not repatriated back to Germany. He elected to stay in Britain. Turned out he was a marvelous goalie. He played for a town team, St. Helens, and then made it to Man City, which coincidentally had a lot of Jewish fans. A lot of the Jewish fans protested a former Nazi being the goalie for their team, but the city's communal rabbi came on and sort of gave him his blessing. He actually became a favorite of the fans in Man City, and in 1956 he was the Football Writers Association Player of the Year. It was that year when Man City was playing in the FA Cup final against Birmingham City that he played the last 20 minutes of the game with a broken neck. Here's the BBC4's last word with Matthew Bannister on Bert Trautman.
The death was announced today of Bert Trautmann. He was the former German prisoner of war who went on to become a celebrated goalkeeper for Manchester City Football Club. Bert, who had served as a paratrooper in the Luftwaffe before being captured, famously broke his neck during the 1956 FA Cup final, but carried on playing for the rest of the match. In 2004, he was awarded an honorary OBE for services to Anglo-German understanding. I've been speaking to the former Arsenal goalkeeper Bob Wilson, who says Bert was his hero. But first, Bert himself describes a traumatic incident from his war service. In 1941, he and a friend stumbled on the aftermath of a massacre of a group of Jewish people by a Nazi death squad.
Women, children, old people, and they shot him. That was my first experience by civilians being shot, children being shot, women being shot, old men being shot. If I would have been a little bit older, I would have probably committed suicide or something like that.
A scary, frightening, horrible war. I mean, you've got to think of a young lad. I always know from both reading the masses of books that have been written about Bert and, in fact, speaking to him personally, that you've got to think of a young lad. And when Hitler arrived and Nazism arrived, it was all about sport. You know, you got encouraged to play sports, and it was the way that they got into the Hitler Youth. So he just embraced that totally. You know, he didn't think anything about where it might lead. He didn't think about it leading to the paratrooper that he became and the horrors that he endured during the early part of the war. It's a remarkable, truly remarkable story. And coming from the background, he came from a very modest background. And so he found his way to a prisoner of war camp in England. And from that point, well, he would, if he was here now, he would say to you that it was a strange love relationship that developed, and that he almost believes he became an Englishman.
It's very interesting, isn't it, that he decided to stay after the war?
Yes, that you were given the choice, evidently, because obviously this country needed a rebuilding. The prisoners of war were given the opportunity of actually going back to their own country, or indeed to stay and to help in the rebuild of the country. And that's what he did up in the northwest, where he was a prisoner of war. And it was from there that he became a goalkeeper. Well, I say a goalkeeper. He was just a natural sportsman, extraordinary physical capabilities. And he played for a team called St. Helens Town before very famously being signed on by Manchester City. Bert became my hero. He became my hero simply because he used to dive headlong at people's feet where most goalkeepers went sideways. And somebody up there, upstairs, had given me this capability to dive headlong, risking all.
Well, and risking all is what he did in 1956, famously, in the FA Cup final.
And I think Trautmann's hurt.
About 20 minutes from the end of the game, came out with one of these absolute trademark saves of just literally head-on, leading with your hands, but of course then your head collided, and he collided with a Birmingham City player, and he had no idea he broke his neck.
Looks like Murphy's knee and Trautmann's head.
I mean, everybody knew he was struggling because he was staggering round like a drunk.
Now, it's obviously not his head, but his neck. Now, this is the neck that Trautmann had 2 years ago.
I mean, he literally was like a drunk for the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, grasping his neck. And there were twice more. He went down in a similar fashion, twice more before the end of the game. He could easily, quite easily, have died on the field.
What was it about him that made him your hero, Bob?
It was his humanity, really, and his decency. It's absolute basic decency of this guy who suddenly realized that these people that he was fighting against actually not only accepted him initially, but loved him, truly loved him. Manchester City fans will forever and a day remember Bert Trautmann, as indeed I will. And I actually believe what I'm about to say to you. I believe that he did as much as any politician, as a sportsman. I think Bert Trautmann did as much as any politician to bring two warring countries back together again.
Bert Trautmann, a legend in English football. We're going to move on now to Helen Thomas, who died recently at the age of 92. And Helen Thomas was the doyenne of the Washington press corps. She was the woman who was always sitting in the first row, peppering the president with questions during press conferences. She was the first female member of the White House Correspondents Association and the Gridiron Club. She got her start covering the White House by covering Caroline Kennedy in 1961. She was aggressive, and I always thought she veered a little too much towards inserting her own opinions in her journalism, but that's an arguable point. Here's a report on the career of Helen Thomas.
Helen Thomas always believed journalism was her calling.
I love history, and I knew this would be the place where I could always keep learning.
Thomas, of Lebanese extraction, majored in journalism in college and joined United Press International soon after graduation. She stayed with UPI for 57 years. During the decade before her death, she worked as a political columnist for Hearst newspapers. In 1961, during President John F. Kennedy's administration, Thomas became one of the first women to cover the White House.
Well, it was wonderful, really, because there was great hope with the Kennedy administration. Young people were taking over, and they had great goals.
During 50 years as a White House correspondent, she covered 10 U.S. presidents. In January 2010, in an interview with the Voice of America, she said one of her most memorable assignments was President Richard Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972.
Every reporter in Washington wanted to be on that trip, so I think that the 8 days we spent there was a great eye-opener, and there was a story in everything, what the Chinese ate, how they looked, what they wore, and so forth.
Over her long career, Thomas developed a reputation for asking tough questions. During a presidential news conference in 2006, Thomas asked President George W. Bush to explain why he invaded Iraq.
I'd like to ask you, Mr. President, your decision to invade Iraq has caused the deaths of thousands of Americans and Iraqis. Wounds of Americans and Iraqis for a lifetime. Every reason given, publicly at least, has turned out not to be true. My question is, why did you really want to go to war?
I think your premise, and all due respect to your question and to you as a lifelong journalist, is that, I didn't want war. To assume I wanted war is just flat wrong, Helen, and all due respect.
No, I would disagree, Helen.
Helen, I find it really unfortunate.
So the Palestinians are not being bankrupted, Helen. What's happening?
Many White House press secretaries were also on the receiving end of her tough questions. Dee Dee Myers was press secretary to President Bill Clinton.
She saw her job as making sure that you were telling the facts like they were, that you were credible, that you were reliable, that you were thorough.
Thomas acknowledged that her no-nonsense attitude came at a price.
I think a lot of presidents have been not afraid, but they don't want to tangle with me in terms of my questions, so they're not very happy to call on me. But I feel that we are representing the American people who don't get a chance to ask the president a question.
Although many regard Thomas as having paved the way for women journalists, she said most working women still have a long way to go.
I think that women still have to achieve true equality at the workplace.
While Helen Thomas will be remembered as a pioneer in the White House press corps, her own hope was to be remembered for something else.
I think I did seek the truth, painful as it is, and justice for everyone.
Helen Thomas retired in the summer of 2010 amid an uproar over her widely publicized remarks criticizing Jews and Israel. She later apologized for saying Israelis should get out of Palestine and Jews should go home to Germany, Poland, or the U.S. Despite the apology, the incident tarnished the reputation of this pioneering American journalist and brought her long career to an end.
Yeah, straddling the border there on the anti-Semitism, Helen. And even if we give you the benefit of the doubt because you were Lebanese, you're supposed to be impartial there. Here's Sam Donaldson on his reminiscences of Helen Thomas.
I love Helen Thomas. I love it. She started at the White House in the early 60s. She was understudy of the great Merriman Smith, the UPI correspondent. And she came at a time when women still couldn't go on the floor of the National Press Club. They had to be in the balcony. All the men could be on the floor for the luncheons with Nehru or the great speakers that came. She helped desegregate that press club as far as gender is concerned. And she's very tough. I know what her politics are, because in private she wears it on her sleeve. But if you watch her with various presidents, she's tough on every one of them that she likes and will vote for, as those that she doesn't like and will vote against. And Helen taught me a very valuable lesson when I first got to the White House with Jimmy Carter. 2 or 3 weeks after Carter became president, they called me and said, hey, we're having a little, just a cake down here in the lower press office for Rex Granum, who was the assistant press secretary. We liked Rex. Come on back. You and Ed Bradley. Ed was at the CBS booth, so we went on back. We'd covered the campaign, so we were kind of, we knew each other. And we were there, and all of a sudden, here came the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. And he came down in there, and a piece of cake, and we started reminiscing with him about the campaign. Oh, Mr. President, remember when we were in Minneapolis, and you fell on the banana peel or something? And Helen, who has talked about a nose for news, she sensed something was going on. She opened the door, and she saw the President there. She takes out her pad. She says, now, about the energy bill that you're going to propose, are you going to read 50% gas tax? Well, my first reaction was to resent the fact we were having a grand old time. And then I thought about it. Carter quickly left. Helen was exactly right. He wasn't sent to the White House to have a grand old time with the President of the United States. If I could get hold of him, I was sent there to ask him questions to find out what his policies were. I thought it was a wonderful lesson, and I've told people about it ever since. And Helen and I, when I was there, we'd fight many battles with press secretaries and others, officials in the press room. See, if you watch the press conferences now with the press secretary, never used to be on television, Mike McCurry and the Clinton administration, you see sometimes one of the techniques the press secretary used to belittle a reporter. Oh, that question's been asked and answered, Joe? Or, oh, come on now, I know that a million times. Joan, if no one speaks up, he gets away with it. Helen and I always made certain, unless it was just some ridiculous thing, reporter asked a question and the press secretary, no, wait a second, we want to hear the answer to that question. Support each other.
Right, everybody supports each other all the time. Don't know how chummy Helen was with William Safire, who she reportedly blackballed from the Gridiron Club for years, ostensibly for his pro-Israel writings, but I guess that's a discussion for another day, too. We're going to close tonight with my man Dennis Farina, nice Chicago boy. Dennis died recently at the age of 69. Nice Italian Catholic boy, North Avenue, St. Michael's Parish. And if you came from a neighborhood like Dennis did around there and you were Italian, it was like those Humphrey Bogart, Jimmy Cagney movies. Your major career choices were to become a cop or a criminal. And Dennis grew up to be a cop. He was in burglary for 18 years. He was a consummate Chicago cop. I think I may have met him once or twice when I was working at the hospital. And then he went into acting. His first role was in a great movie, Thief. It's a movie about a Chicago jewel thief who's played by James Caan, who gets involved with the mob. It was directed by Michael Mann. It's really a superb movie. Dennis had a small role in it. He was part of the mob in that movie. He was either a mobster or a cop in most of his movies because he was so familiar with both lives. From there, he moved on to his first big role with another nice Chicago boy, William Peterson, in Manhunter, which was the prequel to Silence of the Lambs. Two cops here. It's great acting.
Maybe he records it somehow so he could see himself accepted over and over and over again.
VTRs, Polaroids, stills, what?
Oh, I know. How does he find them? We find out how he found them, we'll find him.
There is no connection between the two families. We've done a dozen computers.
Jack, all the women have a bloom on them. He didn't win them in a lottery. He picked these women. There's selection and design in his choices.
Look, admit we struck out this month. The Learjet is standing by. The basic lab stuff is on it. You, Zeller, Jimmy Price, a photographer. Anywhere he hits, we can be there in an hour and 15 minutes. We get the call, we roll. The scene will be fresh, fresher than we've ever had.
It's not over yet.
Oh, for Christ's sake, it's a foregone conclusion. It's 11:30 p.m. The full moon is happening tonight. Give it up. Forget this month. It's too damn late.
I gave it up. Till you showed up with pictures of 2 dead families, knowing goddamn well that I'd imagine families 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? You're right, I did, and I do it again. Great, but don't talk to me about late, pal.
How about that great Chicago Italian accent? By the way, I have to edit out most of Dennis Farina's movie quotes. I will go so far as to say he was the greatest with the F word ever in the movies. Think about that a second. No one used the F word more and better than Dennis Farina. He did a lot of television, including Law & Order. He took over for Jerry Orbach. He was Detective Joe Fontana. Here he is in an interview with his co-star Jesse Martin, where Martin talks about the value of Farina's police experience in doing Law & Order.
So far, in the television world, this has been the biggest boost for me. It's a great kick to work on a piece of history, and I think that Law and Order will go down in history as the longest-running drama show in television. I think it's going to surpass Gunsmoke.
Have you learned a lot from Dennis since he's come on the show this season?
Yeah, especially what food to eat in Chicago. The fact that he was actually a detective for 20 years, right, is invaluable. I mean, there's some things that get written in stories, where the writer may not necessarily know. I mean, we have technical advisors and all that stuff, but there's some, things that, you might not get from a technical advisor, like little nuancy things, and he can show them the real way.
Look, I have to play my 2 favorite Dennis Farina roles. One is in Get Shorty, Elmore Leonard's great movie with John Travolta and Gene Hackman. Here he is with Gene Hackman, another Illinois boy. Dennis Farina is Ray Barboni, a badass mobster from Miami.
I'm Ray Barboni from Miami.
Ray Barboni, owning a piece of a major motion picture. How much of a piece is entirely up to you. What I'm saying is, you could invest part of the $300,000 that Palmer owes you, or all of it. It's entirely up to you.
Where's Chili Palmer? Where's Leo DeVoe? Where's my money?
Ray, look at me.
What?
Look at me, Ray.
Did you just say look at you?
Look at me, Ray.
You got a big problem, Harry. Harry? Well, come on, Harry. Don't pass out on me. Look at me, Harry. Where's my money? Where's my money? Harry, I'm going to ask you one more time, then I got to shoot you. You don't tell me what I want to know. Where's my money?
Great Elmore Leonard dialogue, and trust me, in the whole scene you'd see what I mean about Dennis Farina and being the greatest with the F word. Here he is in Midnight Run with Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, and he's the badass mop kingpin Jimmy Serrano.
Let me tell you 2 guys something. I'm not interested in seeing either one of you 2 alive again until you get the accountant. You got the message? All right. This is it. You understand? I'm sick of all of these screw-ups. As soon as I get the discs from Walsh, you guys drop Walsh and you drop the Duke. You understand? I get the discs, you drop them, okay?
I don't think you should do this.
Oh, really? What do you propose that I do?
You send somebody with a cash offer, but don't do this.
I know Walsh. He won't take any money from me. He's a very self-righteous type of guy. It aggravates me. In his mind, this is clean. He gets what he wants, I get what I want.
Jimmy,
Sidney, sit down, relax, have a sandwich, drink a glass of milk.
So I'm finally in the presence of greatness, huh? The Duke. The guy that steals money from the scum of the earth and gives it to the unfortunates of the world. I wanted to meet you face to face. Did you actually think that you were going to steal my money and get away with it? I stopped by here to tell you 2 things. Number 1 is that you're going to die tonight. Number 2, I'm going to go home, have a nice hot meal. I'm going to find your wife, and I'm going to kill her too.
Dennis Farina minus the F word is playing mobsters. Doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer, Sid Tepps. Closing song is part of a trick that the cast, who loved him, played on Dennis Farina when he took over as host of Unsolved Mysteries from Robert's staff.
Hi, I'm Dennis Farina, and this is Unsolved. Oh. Singer, and you know, sing.